It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are we on? Okay, so in light of the fact that we do in fact have a quorum, yay, thank you all, and more than a quorum of anybody who represents the school system in this district. Tonight's FinCom meeting is going to concentrate on the schools and on the library. That's essentially our agenda for tonight, inclusive of the Nauset Regional High School project. And I think we said we were going to start with Mary Beth to talk about the elementary school budget, which is on the left side of your folders.
So everyone has a copy.
Everyone does. Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you, Giovanna. So if you would like to follow along.
She's almost too efficient.
No such thing. So thank you for having me here tonight. The Wellfleet Elementary School believes that every child matters, is unique, deserves to feel safe, and has the capacity to learn. West continues to strive for social, emotional, and academic excellence for all learners. Our highly qualified educators utilize exceptional instructional practices and innovative programming. Our intensive special education classrooms provide an on-campus collaborative program, thus keeping students in their neighborhood elementary school. West has small class sizes and strong community involvement. Strong community school engagement improves learning outcomes for students. West's thriving community partnerships continues to expand with local organizations such as the Wellfleet Historical Society and Museum, the Cape Cod Family Resource Center, SPAT, and Chequesset Yacht and Country Club. This fall, West welcomed the Wellfleet Recreation Department, offering them an on-campus office space. The Recreation Department will utilize the school in the evenings and on the weekends as the center of lifelong learning, thus making West a resource hub of the community. The FY21 West budget comes in at a 3.47% increase. Staffing reductions are reflected in the FY21 budget. The librarian position has been reduced from 40% to 10%. The technology position has been reduced from 80% to 60%. The school guidance position has been reduced from 100% to 80%, and the speech and language pathologist position has been reduced from 100% to 80%. In FY21, West will no longer receive tuition in the amount of $29,143 from Eastham Elementary School. In addition, circuit breaker funds from FY20 totaling $37,118 will be applied to prepay the FY21 special needs contracted OT and PT services. Circuit breaker funds for FY21 totaling $10,250 will be applied to prepay the FY21 special needs preschool tuition. $20,000 for 4 school choice students will be applied to contracted services, non-instructional technology, and $7,000 from the building use funds will be applied to contracted services building. The FY21 budget maintains all current academic programs, interventions, and the free after-school childcare program. The FY21 budget reflects level funding for many line items, as well as reductions and increases in specific line items. And I outlined those for you on that page in those 2 charts, the first being reductions that are noted with their account number, and then budget increases are noted as well. The West Free After School Child Care Program, we refer to it as ASK, has been a great resource for our working parents. Of the 10 new students who entered West in September, 5 are registered at ASK. To date, 39 students, or 36% of our population, are enrolled in the program, with up to 31 students attending daily. It is our goal to continue this free of charge program in FY21. In FY21, we have increased the ASK budget by only $1,533, totaling $43,503. The increase reflects a 2.5% increase in the 3 staff salaries and a $500 increase in materials and supplies. To close, the regular day portion of the Wellfleet Elementary FY21 budget increases by $30,516 or 1.57%. And the special education portion increases by $63,106 or 8.43%. The total increase from the FY20 to the FY21 West budget is $93,622 or 3.47%. Thank you.
I don't want to preclude anyone else having a question first, so anybody,
Has anybody done the math to see what the percentage increase over the last few years has been?
I have, in FY20, it was an increase of 2.5%. In FY19, it was minus 0.79%.
So what is actually driving the increase this year?
Special education.
Why do I even ask?
is there a particular line item we should focus on that jumps out?
The out-of-district placement.
Nothing we can do with that, is there?
What line item number, Chief?
Well, I see a special needs tuition collaborative 4098, it looks like it jumped to 162%, is that
Correct.
where I should be looking?
And the other is the transportation to the collaborative as well.
So
So
maybe that answers the question that I had.
Yes.
I got an earlier version of the budget from you that had a pie chart.
Correct.
And as usual, the pie chart shows about 75 to 80% of the cost of the school going to personnel costs, salaries and whatnot, right? So I think, piggybacking on Janet's question is where you've made a note of how many salaries have been decreased and how much has been decreased in general. To see a 3-point whatever jump seems to kind of move, go in the opposite direction from.
Right.
Right.
So we had.
So I guess this is overloading or outweighing the economies
Absolutely.
there, is what you're saying.
So we had one student in out-of-district placement, and then at the end of the school year, we had proposed out-of-district placement for another student. And the parent had made that decision, yes, that was the correct decision in the student's best interest. So this was the first year that the student was going there, thus next year's budget is being impacted.
So we have 2 students,
Correct.
and what grade level is the older of the 2 in?
Grade 3. So next year will be grade 4.
Oh, okay, we got a ways to go.
So what we had done, if I may, is we had created our own collaborative program within the building because historically, the students would have automatically gone from the preschool to out-of-district placement. And we wanted to do our very best to keep them in their neighborhood school as long as possible, to be acclimated to their peers, who they will be growing up with. And we just got to a point with these kids where we were no longer we were no longer the professionals to be able to do the applied behavior analysis for these students. So we're keeping the kids as long as we can, and when it's no longer in their best interest, we have to do the right thing. And it's professionally humbling.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Couple other questions. I don't have the document here, but it probably doesn't matter because I think I remember. In your capital improvement plan, we reserved opinion when we were reviewing the capital improvement plans in general, because there were some open questions about how the elementary school plan had been apportioned year over year. My recollection is that it looked like it had sort of been amortized over 4 or 5 years at about $250,000 a year, and I've seen some of your capital improvement plans before where they vary year to year. My guess was, and I guess this is the question, my guess was that you were anticipating the cost of a sprinkler system and then saying, well, let's kind of lay a little bit of it into each year, but I know you have a consultant looking at it this year.
Correct. We were surprised to be visited by the fire department to find that we needed to install a fire suppression system that had not been installed when the new part of the building was added in the early 90s. So we took some time to find out if it was a have to. And so when we were finally told that it was a have to, we had to go forward with the process of course, first having a licensed engineer to review the project. So with the help of Chief Polly, we were able to put it out over the 3 years so that it wouldn't be an enormous amount in 1 year. So that's what we had to do in terms of scaffolding it.
So in terms of how you would approach town meeting then, when there's a final determination that you need the system, which it sounds like you're gonna need,
Correct.
and I gather we're looking at FY 2022 maybe? Or-
We're looking for the system to be added to the school would be FY '22.
Added to the school. So
So
funded
in
when?
FY '20,
Funded over 3
currently
years.
it's the review. In
Right,
FY '21, it's the feasibility study, which is the next step.
right.
And then the following year would be the addition to the school.
Okay, I'm waiting for the 800-pound gorilla. When does the request for $1 million hit the town?
630
June.
in 2022, 630,000.
Okay, that's what I was,
So the cost is being spread out over 3
Correct,
years.
over the
Yes.
3 years.
okay.
Yes.
So and that sort of leads to a sort of standard question we've been asking is looking forward, and I guess this applies to the demographics as well as to things like your capital costs. Looking forward 2 to 3 years out if you can, do you see a significantly larger population of special needs coming in, going
I
out?
do not. I see substantially special needs children, I see that decreasing.
So that should stabilize at least the operational side of your
Absolutely.
budget while the other piece,
Absolutely. So next year I will have, in that substantially separate program, I will have 2 students in grade 5. And so the following year, I'll be losing those 2 students to the middle school. So the numbers will
we
start
can
to
look
go
forward to
down.
the bump in the middle school in about 2 years.
Yep.
All right.
And the reality of that is the middle school might need to make the recommendation of out-of-district placement.
Right.
Okay.
In which case, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not gonna really change any, well, except that it gets spread out amongst more towns.
Right. And again,
Yeah.
I don't anticipate in the near future, 3 to 5 years out, that we will be getting an increase of severe special needs coming into the building.
Well, that's good news.
This is sort of a hypothetical question. You've decreased the librarian line item by 25,000 and I think you said down to 10 hours?
To 10%.
10%,
Mhm.
that's right. 89, actually 10.
How do you even employ a librarian for that few
She has
hours?
a dual role. Yeah, so she's the Title I math teacher as well. And with the length of the school day and the requirements for content minutes, the requirements came out that it was 25 minutes per library class for the elementary schools, as opposed to a 50-minute class that we typically have for specials. So technology has taken that spot, and the librarian position has been cut back to a 25-minute block of time.
So the assumption is that technology is in effect replacing the physical librarian as
For the-
opposed
For the
to,
digital literacy standards.
in as much as we have the town librarian in the, as opposed to them now going to the library to get library services and putting an extra load on the library in town is the question, I guess. You don't have to know the answer. I was just wondering, has there been a hypothetical conversation between the school and the library about how library services might be
Not yet,
impacted?
not yet. But I do talk with Dr. Nielsen quite regularly, and she's
Okay.
in the building quite regularly.
Anybody? Anything? Well, thank you, Mary Beth. very
Thank
much.
you very, very much for your time. Appreciate it.
That's the really big capital request, right? That sprinkler system?
Yes, would you like a copy? Or?
I have it.
You have it.
One of different copies of it.
That is the big, yes, yes. And I'm
You're not gonna
hoping
be, you're not gonna
that,
be replacing the elementary school in 2 years.
no, no. But I'm hoping that at town meeting that Chief Polly, I had requested that he be there to answer questions because that you don't learn fire suppression systems in principal school.
Really?
Well, after.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The things you didn't know you needed to know.
Exactly.
I guess you're up next, Giovanna?
Gonna go up next?
I guess.
We'll start with the regular budget and we'll go on to the.
Good stuff.
So you have a nice packet of information, so we'll start from the top and work our way down. There's a lot here. I'm not gonna go into each line item budget, so we'll just review what all of the budgets are at right now. So starting on the combined budgets, this document right here, which says page 2 at the bottom. Right now, the combined budgets for the middle school, the high school, the region only, and the region shared portion of central office, as of February 6th. Last week, the school committee met. We are at $31,797,847. When I get to the document that details the assessment for each of the member towns, the format has changed from last year's version. Last year's version, we had on there a separate line item for the OPEB. We had a separate line item for the capital. And this year, we've done some housekeeping so that everything is above the line. So when I get to it, it'll be clearer. That's why on here, we have OPEB that was separately stated last year, and I'm showing it just so that all the numbers tie in together. So the OPEB contribution this year is in the region-only budget. So last year, the school
Oh, I
committee had
see.
voted for
Which is why it's pumped up to 9.3% in part?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so this combined budget represents an increase of $796,132, or a 2.57% increase over last year's budget. This year, the region-only budget, again, the health insurance was no increase, so that was quite helpful. We are monitoring, again, the special needs costs. We do meet with Dr. Creddy, and Dr. Creddy assesses the number of students coming up from the elementaries into the district, and then the current needs of the current students. So there's costs involved for out-of-district placements, transportation, etc. So those are some of the cost drivers as well. Okay. The income portion, I'll go in detail on the 2-page document when we get to it. We're looking at income, and that's income with state-based aid, the charter school aid, state transportation to our own P-Town tuitions, as well as elementary assessments, other receipts that we obtain through Medicaid, interest, etc. And then, also transfers from what we anticipate utilizing in FY21 from E&D. Okay, so the income is $7,908,594, which represents an increase of $199,331, or a 2.59% increase. So we come down to the total operating budget of $23,889,253, an increase of $596,801, or an increase of 2.56%. So we take the total combined budgets less the income, come down to an operating budget. The debt is $255,296, a reduction of $7,884, or a negative 3%, and that is due to the reduction in the amount that we're paying for the bond anticipation notes. The rate has decreased from last year, and as well as the principal that we're paying, the interest has decreased as well. So therefore, the reduction. Capital, $545,665, an increase of $13,309, or a 2.50% increase. So we're looking at the total assessment, which is a combination of the operating budgets, the income, the debt, and the capital. So the total assessment is $24,690,214, which is an increase of $602,226, or a 2.50%. And so below is the same, which I detail the FY21 is the operating budget, debt, and the capital budget.
So would it be fair to say that the bulk of the capital budget is oriented towards the middle school at this point?
That is
In
correct.
anticipation of
The-
Godzilla arriving sometime in the next couple of years?
Correct. More emphasis on the repairs and maintenance is on the middle school, less on the high school in lieu of the project that's on the horizon.
You ever see that short film from the '60s, Godzilla Meets Bambi?
Yes.
No.
Bambi, yeah, it's basically, it's a little line drawing cartoon. Bambi is drinking water at a little fountain, and you hear da 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 da, and then suddenly you hear. And this, the whole thing is a minute, and then the foot comes down on Bambi, and film over.
It's all about 2 minutes long.
Yeah, it's good. Anyway,
That was your father's finance committee, right?
whatever. Questions?
What do you have on reserve for cash?
Right now, the district, the amount that was certified by the state E&D was $1,457,257 on July 1st, as of July 1st. We are in the midst of projecting out what we anticipate E&D to be, taking into account what we anticipate utilizing, as well as money going back into E&D from the region-only budget. And there's also other items out there that we're anticipating. We're applying for extraordinary relief because of the high special needs costs. So extraordinary relief, we let the state know. Arlen communicated with the state that we would be applying. She will be going for training, and if past history is any indication of what we will be receiving, we expect to receive extraordinary relief. So when that money comes in, that needs to be expended in this fiscal year. So it'll reduce the amount of expenses in the out-of-district placement in the region-only budget, and therefore those funds will go into E&D. We're also looking at funds from the state with regards to fiscal 19 and fiscal 20 supplemental transportation aid, so that too will go back into E&D.
Could you define E&D for the,
E&D is the school's
Television audience.
equivalent of the town's free cash. So we don't have, we can't go back to the town and ask for money.
It's your general fund.
So this is our fund in case we need it for emergencies. So,
You can also use it to adjust your budget, can't you?
correct.
Right. And what is it earning in terms of a rate of return?
What do you mean, interest rate?
Yeah, how is it invested?
Jim Nowak and the treasurer, Connie Boulos, take care of that. I don't have
Mhm.
specifics, but year-to-date interest is good.
It's been doing quite well, actually.
Rate of return would be ballpark,
I can
1%, 2%?
I don't have the percentages,
Okay.
but I do know that year-to-date, we have earned $50,484 of interest. That's through January.
That's a good, that's a lot.
So, if I may,
yeah,
we received a copy of a letter sent to all finance committee members. And I'm sure you know about it. It's a gentleman agitating for reduction in.
Janet, I don't wanna, I'd like to hold off on that for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Until we've had a presentation on the building and that, because that's gonna come in as correspondence.
Well, it's directly related to the school. I'd like to
It is,
address
but
here.
I'd really like to hold off on that until later, because it's gonna take the conversation in a whole other direction. Ask the question, but I'm gonna reserve the right to say we may wanna wait on it.
Are you aware of the letter? It's basically claiming that school choice students pay we get much less payment tuition-wise than we expend per student on average. And this gentleman is advocating for an end to that program, and do you feel that actually is the truth, and or can you speak to that in any way?
I'm not familiar with the letter, I haven't seen a copy, but I can tell you that the amount that we receive from school choice is $5,000 per student. We do receive additional revenue for special needs costs related to that student.
If necessary, I assume.
So I will say I had a lengthy conversation with Ann Teft, who is
But we
Conrad's
weren't talking about this.
assistant.
I
And-
support your idea of shelving this for now,
Yeah.
because the part with school choice is nobody has any influence over
I
the fee.
just
It's-
wanted to find out what the
and it's a more
reality
complicated
was.
issue
Right,
than just
we
this
could probably
person's letter.
spend a whole
And it's
year.
gonna be read in, at least it'll be noted when we get to
Right.
correspondence, and I hope you'll still be here, so if there's a way to have a dialogue then, I'm happy to have it, but
Okay.
there's multiple pieces to it, and we could derail this whole conversation pretty quickly.
Right, we're not
If
here to
you can
debate
stick
whether or
around,
not you
then
can have-
to-
whether you wanna cancel school choice or not. I think we should stick to the budget.
And
That's fine. I just wanted, if Giovanna's gonna be here when we get to that, then I'm fine shelving it for now.
Okay. I have a question, and maybe this is a segue to are there any more operational questions, I guess, is the first question. I had one, actually. Less OPEB, the region-only budget would have gone up by what?
The region only, if it wasn't included, it would be only up by $483,075.
Which would represent about half of that, then about 4.5%?
Correct.
Is that
Approximately.
salary increases and whatnot? I mean,
We can take a look at the,
Honestly, 2.5 is not bad.
No, it's not.
no, and I'm not trying to be a nit here.
Yes, you
Just
No, no.
dotting i's, crossing t's,
we
that's
can go
all.
to the region-only budget, and we can look at the items where we have a substantial increase. Is everyone
Looks
there?
like it's right at the front end of,
So let's start with page 1. Page 2 is on top, it's just the way it was printed. So let's start with page
A
1.
stapling issue.
Stapling, yes.
Stapling malfunction.
So starting on page 1, where we have the school choice tuition amount and the charter school tuition. The school choice, this is the number of students leaving the district. Are we good?
I think I found
Okay. So the number of students leaving the district, that's a cost to us.
it. This one?
So there are more
Yes.
students
Yes,
leaving,
okay.
Okay.
more students leaving the district than there were.
There's more students leaving, correct. So we see an increase of $71,252. Like I said, we receive $5,000 per student. If there's special needs costs involved, that is also in there as well. So more students are leaving the district. So in that section, the charter school tuition, here we have a decrease of $69,964. So there's less students attending the charter school. Okay. Also on this page, we go further down to the middle there, the special needs salary speech therapeutic OTPT. This is up $24,711 or 12.21%, and that is what we bill out to the elementaries, and that's all based on student need. So Dr. Creddy does an assessment as to what the students need, and each elementary school is charged that. So we see the expense here, and then we also see the revenue on the region operating budget. We'll get to that shortly. Okay. So now let's go to page 1 in reverse. Let's see. So on page 2, that was page 1. So on page 2, on the front page, the special needs section there where we have the transportation. Every year Dr. Creddy assesses the incoming students and the current students and their transportation needs to go to the in-district and as well as out-of-district. So based upon the information that we had last year, we had budgeted $326,976. Based upon the information that we have currently, we reduced the amount of the transportation cost. So we see a reduction here of $166,816 or a 51.02% decrease. We've got some increases in the in-district transportation costs, and typically we budget a 4% increase pending final numbers from the collaborative. So those increases are reflective of those amounts. The next section is the special needs tuition non-public schools. This is what I made reference to earlier, where we send the students out of district. Here we see a substantial increase from what was budgeted for fiscal '20. And again, this is based on the incoming students and the current students. And that's increased $378,088, or a 23.62% increase. The special needs tuition, the collaborative, again, this is all driven by incoming students, current students, and who will be attending the collaborative. Here we see a decrease of $206,560, or a decrease of 39.61%. Okay. The next section, there's small decreases and a small increase in various line items there, so there really isn't much there. And as well as the, down below, the technician's salary, that's contractual. So again, you know, the items that drive this budget are the, you know, some of the special needs costs. Okay, so moving on to page 3. The other item in the middle of the page is the county retirement assessment. This is the retirement for the non-teaching personnel, and this has gone up $80,684. That's a 9% increase. Okay. The employer share of the health insurance, I mentioned earlier that it was a 0% increase again this year. We took into account, we have a couple of retirements, and those teachers are over 65, so they'll go into the Medicare plan, Blue Cross Medicare. So I've taken a reduction for those teachers. The next item is the OPEB contribution. This is increased by $400,000, which is an 800% increase. As I said, presentation, it's different than last year's presentation. We've included it in the region-only budget instead of a separately stated item on the front of the region operating budget. Okay.
So, can I ask a question? And I think this may touch on the point that Janet brought up as well. When we see a number that says it costs $20,000 to educate a student versus the $5,000 we get back from the state for a student who's coming in from outside. So there's this notion that there's a $20,000 price tag to educate a student per year, per student per year. Is that a number that is sort of amortized across the entire school population?
What happens is we report to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education every year. By October 1st, we send in all of our information, what it costs us to educate everyone district-wide for the region, the middle school and the high school.
Right.
And based upon what we report to DESE, they formulate all the information and develop a per pupil number. So that includes not only our students in the district, but also the districts that go out under
Right.
choice and to the charters.
So I guess 2 points about that, and if I'm correct. One is that it floats to some degree because in any given year it costs a little more or a little less to educate a student based on your budgets.
It all depends on the.
It's not a fixed 20,000 really.
And it's not only the costs that are in the operating budget, but also costs from outside the operating budget from grants. That's all reported out.
And the other point I think is true, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it reflects the nature of the school. Not every school in Massachusetts pays $20,000 per student for their programs. There are some who probably spend considerably less, I would guess.
Or considerably more.
Or more based on the programming, the quality of the teaching, and so on and so on. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay.
Okay, so, and then going further down here, the other item here, the buildings, contents, liability, auto insurance. Back in 2014, we increased our deductible, and I've asked the insurance carrier Maya to do the same again in fiscal '20. So there was some savings there. However, our buildings are not at fair market value. So in order to bring them up to replacement costs, our policy will be increasing over the next 3 years. They're going to phase that in. So this increase reflects that. So we did increase our
Well,
deductible.
maybe that's a good segue to start talking about the building, because it sounds like it might be linked to the actual construction of the new buildings.
No, it's
Not at
linked to
all.
the current buildings.
But when they're done, when the old current buildings are,
Only one of
History.
the buildings is, and the.
No, this
This is based on the current.
the current building, it has nothing to do with the new building coming up. Okay. All right,
And this is
so,
both the middle school and the high school, and only one of those
and central
is,
office.
it's changing, right?
Yeah, it's changing, exactly.
All right, so they're gonna phase this additional cost to us over the next 3 years. The other item here is the interscholastic athletic insurance. That's based on the number of students. That's a slight increase from last year, and that went up $2,028 or 19.28% increase. We're in the process of reviewing the insurance again, maybe looking outside of the current carrier, but I need to contact them first to make sure that we're not violating any terms of our agreement with them. Okay. The next section is the employee share, the retired health insurance. Here we have a decrease of $16,348 or negative 2.33%. As employees pass on, the amount that we pay for them is reduced. The same with the Section 18 health insurance expense. As the employees pass on, that decreases. So that's a decrease of $1,341 or a 34.03% decrease.
So you've had several people leave the program.
They've left the program, yes, unfortunately. But
That's a nice way to put
Wasn't it?
Leave the program, left the planet.
Gone to the other
So
side
any
of the sod.
any other questions on the region?
it.
owned
Just the
budget?
one that we ask everybody, if you were projecting forward 2 to 3 years, to the best of your ability, I mean, Mary Beth said there's gonna be a little bump up in the middle school from Wellfleet in special needs. I assume you scan your diaspora to see where that's likely to come from in other parts of the district too.
Yes.
When you look out to 2022 and 3, are you seeing any significant issues?
Other than what we know about the.
And aside from the high school renovation?
Probably the health insurance.
Because you gotta pass on it this year, sort of.
2 years in a row, 0%. So next year, the health insurance, special education costs, those are the
Do you have a
two.
sense of proportion on those? Like how big a hit they are likely to be?
I had a conversation with
As a
Dr.
percentage of your budget, for example?
I had
or
a
whatever?
conversation with Dr. Coretti, and she said to me, Giovanna, 1 year I had budgeted for this number of students, and these programs. By the time it came to school started, it wasn't these students, it was other students, different programming, so it's hard to,
You might as well roll the dice.
yeah,
And same thing,
it changes daily.
same thing with health insurance, there's no way to predict what they're gonna do.
It changes daily.
I remember having to deal with health insurance for a couple of companies I worked for.
Okay, so do we want to continue with the packet? I'm not gonna go into each of the, but I
Yes,
just want
please. Just
to highlight
identify-
items here. So the next section is, we have a pie chart based upon the first version of the middle school budget, which shows you how the expenses are allocated. And as you can see, the middle school, most of the allocation, 91.4%, is personnel costs. So that leaves very small amount of funds for other things, okay? And so the next section is we have the version 1 of the middle school budget. I'm not gonna go through that, because we summarized that earlier, unless there's specific questions on the middle school budget.
Could I just ask why this is designated version 1? How many versions do you anticipate?
Well, what happens is we start with version 1, and then as we go through the vetting of the budgets and the various committees, we don't issue another version right away. We do the one pager where we say, okay, this is where we're at with version 2. And then once the budgets are passed, then we finalize everything and I prepare a final budget. So that's why it says version 1. If you look at Mary Beth's, hers has final. That was approved by the committee, so it's final. There's nothing else to do with it.
So we will, as a finance committee, in all likelihood, be making our recommendations in 2 weeks, two meetings from now. which version are we likely to be on by then? Well, can we go to war thinking we have a pretty good picture of what the final is going to be here, or no?
We're still vetting. We have another meeting tomorrow night, and then.
So if there's an update that's significant, you'd
We'll let you
let us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item is the high school budget. Again, the high school budget is 91% personnel. And so the next section is the region-only budget, where we just went over. And so the next section is the operating budget, which details the expenses, the income, and the assessments. Okay. So I'm gonna go section by section, and if there's any questions, I can answer questions when I'm done. Okay. There's quite a bit here. It's complex
this?
and,
No.
no, this one here. Last time I think I had
I don't
everything
know where it is.
color-coded. It was
And-
easier.
And actually, you've got very handy cover sheets, except I've already messed mine up looking for something, so they meet.
So it's
There's no
this
meaning
one
to them
here.
anymore.
Is that the consolidated?
So I think you passed it,
What it says operating budget.
this one here.
Oh my gosh.
I think you
It'll look
passed
like
it.
this.
Yeah, thanks.
And
I
it'll,
can't find it.
well, for one thing, it'll be not landscape. That should help a
Yeah.
little bit.
No, I'll just find it. I'll get there. Just move on.
You sure?
Just ignore
Okay.
me.
All right,
I'll find it eventually.
okay. So the top section is the various line item budgets. So we have the middle school budget, the high school budget. Again, housekeeping item, I put the OPEB contribution up here so that previously it was below, so to have everything tie in properly, I put it up here. Notice there's nothing earmarked for fiscal 2021 because it's all included in the region-only budget, which we just went over. Okay, we've got the region-only budget. The region-only budget is reduced here by the amount of expenses that will be charged directly to the various revolving accounts, which are detailed on page 2 of this document. So if we go to this page 2, we're looking at utilizing funds from circuit breaker. So we look at what we anticipate receiving next year. We anticipate receiving $830,000 of circuit breaker funds. But we will also utilize an additional $100,000 from the revolving account. So we have a balance in the revolving account. So that brings the amount that we'll be utilizing to $930,600. And that represents an increase of $166,326 from last fiscal budget. And that's a 21.76% increase.
Can I ask you to define circuit breaker funds for the general listening
Sure.
public?
Circuit breaker funds are the funds that we receive from the state for special education costs. That's for costs for placements to the collaborative, to out-of-district placements. It does not include transportation, but that will change in fiscal '21. But I don't know how much we will be receiving in transportation aid for special needs out-of-district placements. For their transportation, I'm told that it's a 25% phase-in for the first year, and then 50, 75, and 100%, but I don't know what those amounts are. We'll have more information when we meet with Jay Sullivan at the collaborative in March. So this is what we anticipate utilizing. The school choice revolving fund, we're earmarking $1,556,500. This represents a decrease of $571,600, or a decrease of 26.86%. What we've done in the past is if you look at the prior 2 years, we've utilized the fund balance in school choice. We had a robust balance, so each of those 2 years, we utilized additional funds as a resource. However, those funds have now been dried up. They've been depleted. So that's why the reduction in the amount of revenue that we're we're gonna use from school choice. Last year, we had budgeted for 320 students, however, we did not receive 320 students. We received 292 students. Okay, and so right now, as of October 1st, we have 283 students, and so that's what we're budgeting, 283 students. And what we do is, each student is $5,000, but for budgeting purposes, we estimate it to be $5,500 per student. That takes into account the special education increment. Okay. We're also planning on utilizing money from the Cape Cod Tech Revolving Fund. We provide consulting services to the cafeteria program at the Tech. So we're planning on utilizing $10,000, which is $4,000 more than last year, or 66.67% increase. We're also planning on utilizing funds from the International Student Revolving Account of $25,000. That's an increase of $25,000. We haven't used anything for the prior 3 years, so that represents a 100% increase. So the total amount that we will be expenses from the region-only budget that we'll be charging directly to these revolving accounts totals $2,522,100, and that reflects a decrease of $376,274, or a 12.98% decrease. Okay, that takes care of the region-only budget. And then we have the region's share of the central office costs there as well, $1,105,556, and that's an increase of $28,429, or 2.64%. So the total expenses total $31,797,847, an increase of $796,132, or a 2.57% increase. The income section, the state-based aid, the amount that we're proposing is based on the current year amount that we've received in aid, $3,526,826, and that represents an increase of $35,558, or a 1.02% increase. We also looked at the estimated amounts from the state's cherry sheets to utilize this number for budget purposes.
A quick question. Up until 2017, you listed transfers in from revolving funds as an income, which seems like is what it is, and then it looks like the accounting rules changed, and now it looks like an expense.
What happened was we were utilizing the amounts from the revolving accounts and including them in the income portion of the budget.
Yeah.
And the state, when they come to certify a E&D, said, no, you can't do it that way. You have to charge the expenses directly to the revolving accounts. So the last year that we included those amounts as part of the income was back in fiscal 17 budget.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because
So now for the.
as we were looking at the other chart, I thought, well, this looks like income to me, you know?
Yeah, so we have to charge directly to those revolving
Okay.
accounts, so that's what happened there. All right, the charter school aid, we looked at what's come in this year and we projected out for next year, and it's slightly lower, $58,154, a decrease of $3,395, or a decrease of 5.52%. The state transportation aid, we level funded this amount. We looked at what we reported to DESE, the end of year report, and we usually take about 73%. But we looked at what we are currently receiving, and we felt level funding was appropriate. The Truro and Provincetown tuition, here we see a decrease in the amount of revenue that we're projecting. We're anticipating $2,118,863, and this reflects a decrease of $225,303, or a reduction of 9.61%. Typically what we do when we start the budget process, I contact the Provincetown and the Truro business managers, and I ask them, how many students do you anticipate coming to Nauset in the next fiscal year? So based upon my conversations, the number of students that we're anticipating 91 students from Truro and 21 students from P-Town. P-Town is taken into account. Even though they have budgeted for 28 students, they anticipate that 7 of those students will go to the tech. Okay. Last year, we had budgeted for X number of students, and the total number of students that we actually received was less. We had budgeted for 127 students, and we did not receive 127 students. So right now we're in year 1 of the 5-year contract with Truro and P-Town. So fiscal 21 represents year 2.
And what are the students, what is the per student?
The per student cost for the current fiscal year, fiscal 20, is $18,458 per student. In fiscal 21, it increases by 2.5% to $18,918 per student. Okay, the elementary assessments for therapists, we talked about this. We saw the expense on the region only budget, and this is the revenue coming in, $227,140, an increase of $24,711, or an increase of 12.21%.
Where is that revenue coming from?
That's coming from the elementary schools. The high school and the middle school, their portion is included in their budgets. But this is what we bill out to the towns. The next section is the estimated receipts. We looked at the current receipts for fiscal 20, and we projected for next year $211,000, and that represents $11,000 increase, or a 5.50% increase. The transfer from an E&D, right now we're anticipating the use of $946,760 out of E&D, which is an increase of $356,760, or a 60.47% increase. So the total income of $7,908,594 represents an increase of $199,331, or a 2.59% increase from the prior year budget.
So the transfer of 946 is out of
E&D.
out of a fund of how much?
Well, right now we have a balance of, that was certified of 1.4. Tomorrow night, I will be presenting to the region school committee what we project E&D to be at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. So we'll have more information after tomorrow night's meeting.
That's a lot to pull out of, seems, or is it just based on some notion that as long as you keep a base of a certain amount, $500,000 or whatever, it's okay?
Well, we'll discuss that tomorrow night at the
Okay.
school committee. I can't give you any more information.
That'll be the update, yeah, okay.
All right, so the total operating budget, $23,889,253, an increase of $596,801, or a 2.56% increase. The next section is the debt service. Here, the construction debt, this is for the debt that we incurred for the high school roofs and windows, as well as the roof at the middle school. The debt for that is $256,450, which represents a decrease of $10,836, or a decrease of 4.05%. The debt is less than last year, it's reduced slightly. And what also is in here is the bond anticipation notes. The cost for those notes has decreased from the prior year. The prior year we had $20,973 earmarked for bond anticipation notes. That was for the $1.3 million for the feasibility study that's going on at the high school now. So the band rate for next year is going to be 1.7%.
So I guess 2 questions about that for me. One is, how long is that debt scheduled to run? The roof debt.
I believe that's a 20-year debt.
And so what is it, 4 or 5 years in now?
We're in 20, we'll be in 21. I'll have to get back to you.
Whatever.
But I'll search into my papers.
And part 2 of that question is, if you're going to redo the windows or roof of the high school in the renovation, does that get has money been set aside to retire that debt so that you're not paying twice for windows and roofs
I'm
when
sure-
you have one roof?
I'm sure Greg will assess that.
Okay.
Looking back, we would be in 1, 2, 3, 4, year 5 of the 20-year debt for the windows and roofs, because I can tell by the debt here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and the other amount that we're transferring from ED is $1,154. You'll notice it's lower than last year. What happened is the state changed our auditors for certifying E&D, and this was the premium on the bonds that we sold, and they wanted amortized differently, so they lowered it. So that's why there's a reduction here. So the total debt to be funded is $255,296, a reduction of $7,884, and that represents a reduction of 3%. The next section is the capital plan projects. Previously, they were down below here, so they're all up top here. So the amount that we're proposing for fiscal '21 is $545,665, and that's an increase of $13,309, or 2.5%. And that's been the case over the last few years. It's increased 2.5%. So the total assessment is $24,690,214, which represents an increase of $602,226, or a percentage increase of 2.50. And so the next section below, we detail the FY20 information for you as to the assessments for each of the member towns, the debt assessment, the FY20 capital plan projects, the FY20 OPEB contribution, and then the operating assessment, and then the total assessment for fiscal 20. And then below, at fiscal 21, we look at what the assessment is for fiscal 21. So based on
Wellfleet's looking good because we have one less student.
one less student, yes, that is correct. The total
Go Wellfleet.
yeah, the total increase was 25 students for fiscal 21, and you can see below the percentage increase. The amount of students that increased for Brewster was 31. East End saw a reduction of 11 students. Orleans increased by 6 students, and Wellfleet lost 1 student, so a total of 25 students. So the total number of students for the fiscal 21 population is 1,199 students, and we have the allocation as to the number of students for each member town.
So I don't want to slow you down, but Stephen already said before we started, 2.5% looks pretty good.
Right.
We would, unless there's some really key things you want to highlight, I think I could make the case that we've heard enough, and we can, especially since this is VDOT1, and we can take you off the burner and get on to the capital project and on the library, if that's agreeable to everyone. How do you feel about that? I don't know if there was a big finish coming up. Ta-da! It's like-
There's no big finish. The next section is a pie chart which details all of the combined budgets except the,
And it's still mostly salaries.
it's mostly salaries, except the capital. And then we provide you with enrollment, and then we provide you with the enrollment with respect to the assessment percentage.
I don't know that anybody else would, but that's-
I'll just speak for myself. I feel like I got a pretty good overview, and I'll thank you.
Thank you.
And especially for putting together this nearly impenetrable set of charts, but explaining them so cogently, it's amazing.
There's a lot of information.
There's a lot of
Thank you very
information,
much.
and it's complicated. And if you have any other questions, you're welcome to email me if something that comes up.
Well,
that
sometime in the
I
next
didn't
two
cover.
weeks, I'm sure we'll be in touch just to make sure,
Just to see where
as
we're
I
at.
said, that, things are substantively
Have they
the same.
changed, and if so, how much?
Yeah. Thank you. Sharon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who's gonna speak to the
Capital project.
capital project? Uh-oh, look at all that stuff.
Do you want me to relinquish my seat?
No.
You can sit right here if you want. That Mia likes when someone's right in the line of fire.
Okay. Speak up for me, I'm not Jack. So let me introduce myself. My name is Greg Lavosser. I'm the chairman of the high school building committee. And I'm from the town of Brewster, and I won't make any excuses for that tonight.
We won't ask for it.
Okay.
No need, there's more heat, it's a warmer town than Wellfleet.
What I'd like to do is hand out a large sheet, a spreadsheet. There's $2 there. And there's 2 there.
Let's get one more this way.
Okay. There we go. And hand out another little piece of paper that we can go over. So I'm not sure where you folks are with regards to the project, how deep you want me to go. I can back up, I can forward as much as you want. What you have in front of you is the final budget for the high school building project that was settled by the building committee folks and MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, at a meeting on January 16th up in Boston. And I can run that over that paperwork with you, or if you want an overview of the project, however you folks want to go, you tell me.
Has anybody not gotten an overview of the project to date? So I think we kind of have a good feel for
Okay.
what the nature of the project is, and even some of the high-level costs associated with it.
Okay.
I know for myself, the questions I have are, A, where are you right now?
Okay.
You know, and what are the variables that could make it go one way or the other? You know, I don't think my sense is it's not likely to decrease a whole lot unless it goes to zero.
That would be a really big decrease, yes.
That would be a huge decrease. But other than that, I mean, if there's things that we should be looking at that you go, well, the construction costs are estimated at this, but they could be
Yep.
twice as much if, you
So,
know.
let me, I'll just run you through the budget, so you have some idea where things go.
Sure.
And then that way, I'm trying to give everybody the same consideration, same basis of information. I don't wanna preclude anybody from not getting the right information, and, so I don't wanna give you the bum's rush, you know, when it comes to information. So, let me just walk you through the document. So, what you have in front of you is actually it's a new form that MSBA came up with it last November. So it's a learning curve for them and us, as we went through this process.
Could you define MSB for the?
MSBA is the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
There you go.
They're a state agency that helps fund school projects when they're requested to do so by the school district. Nassau Regional School District completed a statement of interest, an SOI, 4 years ago. MSBA looked at the project, they sent staff down, and in the second year of consideration, invited Nassau Regional School to come onto the program. Generally, it's a 5 to 7 year wait before you accept it into the program at MSBA. They have limited funds. 1 cent of the sales tax in the state goes to school funding for the construction. They have roughly 80 to 85 schools apply every year, and they generally just fund anywhere from 10 to 15 schools a year, depending on how much money they have.
Do you have a paper package of one of our board members? For those of you who don't know, welcome Sarah Robin.
Good evening. So, over the last 2 years, the building committee has met, and we first set a goal of meeting the MSBA requirements, which are very stringent. When you are accepted into the program, you are running through their program. It's an 8-step program. We are in step 3. And that means a lot of paperwork, a lot of reports, and a lot of oversight by, they assign 2 staff people to each project. We have 2 staff folks up in Boston who oversee this project, and let me know if I've screwed up, and make sure I correct those screw-ups with regards to finding the right paperwork with them. So, through the whole process, we hired an architect and a project manager, and we went through the process of winnowing out different choices. We're required to do the following for MSBA. First, we look at a project that just brings the property up to code only. Plumbing code, heating code, ventilation code, all those code only options. And that is a baseline of information that they use, and we use to evaluate the property. We look at the systems, and what's needed and what needs to be repaired and replaced. Second part of this is that the school department is required to generate what's called an educational vision plan. In other words, the staff meets, they do a self-evaluation. We include input from all the communities, the students, everybody gets their 2 cents into the program as to what they'd like for Nassau Regional High School to offer for education for the next 50 years, because that's what we're required to do, is build this project for 50 years. So in tandem with that, we look at, again, the building conditions. So I gave you the base option, which is a code option. At the far end of the scale is a brand new building. We're required to give them an exercise of putting a brand new building up for the high school. Part of that process was looking at a separate site to see if there'd be another piece of property in the 4 towns that would accept a new high school. We inquired from all the town halls if there's a 40-acre site somewhere in the district that could accept the high school. And we knew the answer before we asked the question, but we have to go through the process and show MSBA we did this.
There are parts of the state, I imagine, where there might be.
It might be, but there were none in the Nassau Regional District.
Right.
So then we looked at building a new high school on the same property.
Right.
There's 72 acres at the high school property in Northeast End as we speak, and the current buildings are at the southern end of the parcel. The northern end of the parcel has the playing fields and things of that nature. So in doing so, we had to have the property surveyed, and we quickly found that as you get just north of the tennis courts and southern part of the track, we trip into the endangered species area that's now part of the national park, because we are in the national park. And then also going more northerly in the property, we ran into the fact that the town of Eastham now has a brand new water main that's buried underground, and we would be building on top of that new water main.
Oh, yeah.
So we tried not to do that. So there's a lot of considerations for all the options we looked at. So that's item 1 and item 10 on the scale. So then we looked at 8.
I'm sorry, quick question. Were you able to leverage any of the work that the Tech High School had done in their site prep or is it just apples and oranges?
It's apples and oranges.
Okay.
It's 2 different sites, it's 2 different schools, it's 2 different
Completely different
projects.
And I thought maybe in terms of process though, and what they had to sign off on and all, maybe there was some commonality.
No,
Okay.
everybody's different. So in the interim, so then the architect, in looking at the education plan and looking at the process of either building or renovating, we looked at 8 other options from the building committee, and some of them were interesting in that, interesting in the sense that the architect is from not around here, so they brought us an option where they put a brand new building that buried the tennis courts that the town of Eastham had just installed.
Oh, good.
So we said, we can't put the new building on top of the tennis courts. The next option was, they buried the football field. Well, the football field was donated by citizens, not in the district, of the district, but it's all private funding. But I said, you're really not gonna make a lot of friends if you cover the football field. So, as you can hear, we're winnowing this thing further and further to where we are today.
Which is a hybrid of renovation and
Yeah,
building.
so what we have, the building committee has settled on is a 60% renovation of the existing buildings. And the buildings have been looked at by the engineers, and the structure of the high school is terrific. It's incredible. It was built like a bomb shelter back in the 60s and 70s. It's all reinforced concrete. What it's really missing is that, given the vintage of the buildings, there was no consideration for insulation and a thermal envelope that was efficient. So there is no insulation. So you have a lot of exposed concrete that the wind blows by and it sucks the heat out of the buildings. So all the buildings that are there, after the 60% renovating, the walls will be torn out. You're going to see concrete structure, and the walls will be rebuilt with modern building materials, insulation. The concrete structure will be isolated so that it doesn't suck the heat out of the buildings. Those new walls will have new plumbing, new wiring, new controls, all the things that make a modern structure today. We're looking for a LEED certified project when we're done, which is what the state looks forward to doing for all these projects. They want us to improve the beast, not just put lipstick on the pig.
Right.
So we ended up, as I said, with 8 different variations, and it came down to 2 strong candidates. They were named by the architect 4A and 4B, and after some deliberation, the majority of the school building committee picked what we called 4A, but that's the option before you. It's just our final choice for renovating and adding to the high school. So as I said, we renovate 60%. What happens is that there are 2.5 buildings that get torn down. If you've been on campus, the first building that gets torn down is the cafeteria and the kitchen area, and I use that word very loosely, because the kitchen was built in the 60s and early 70s and really was mostly a warming kitchen. There's no space to expand, there's no real space to have the proper equipment to cook for a student body of 900. The other building that gets torn down is the science building, Building E. It's the smaller, lower of the 8 buildings on campus. And because it's situated the way it is, none of the elevations line up. It's a half story lower and a half story higher in some respects, so nothing fits with the other buildings. So we decided, and quite frankly, the science labs are not to current standards. So that gets torn down.
For all sorts of good reason, that goes away.
Yep, and the last piece that gets torn down is the boiler room on the back of the auditorium. That gets in the way of how the architect wanted to add to the property of a new structure that includes new science labs, 8 new science labs. The classrooms all get resized because some of the classrooms are undersized by today's standards. A classroom today for high school ranges from 825 square feet to 950 square feet. The rooms we have are between 7 and 750. So the state has changed its standards for a lot of different reasons. Comfort of educating the students, enough air changes, enough space in the rooms to actually teach the students in the atmosphere that the state requires. So,
So the state has changed its requirements,
Yep.
we have to conform.
yes,
Got it.
a lot of it. That's part of that code issue I keep talking about. So,
Is there significant change to auditorium space or anything like that?
yes, and the reason that is because part of the whole process is that we have to look at security on the campus. And the biggest thing about security is you want to isolate the daily workings of a high school and student body to those spaces that are considered open to the public or be used by the public. So as you know, the current auditorium is smack dab in the middle of the campus. To try to keep that isolated from the working days of the school and make it useful for public became a nightmare. And quite frankly, the auditorium does not meet handicap code of today's code. You can get a wheelchair in parts of it, but for instance, the lighting booth, the control booth it's 2 stories up, concrete steps. You can't get anybody who is not physically able to get up there. The seats themselves are in concrete set tiers, so it just does not work in today's world. So I'll just go over the schematic you have in front of you at some point. But so we moved the auditorium to the front of the property. We also moved the cafeteria so that there's an actual kitchen. The kitchen is now going to be aligned with the home ec program, not the home ec program stuck on the second floor
So wait,
behind.
I just wanna
Yep.
cover that. So what are you saying exactly with the COMAC program in the kitchen?
The culinary program now is in second floor of D building.
Right,
That small kitchen with the 9 stoves
right,
is going to be moved
okay,
to the first floor,
okay,
adjacent to the brand new kitchen.
okay,
So that will actually be a culinary space that people can cook in, and the culinary department can do cooking and sell those wares or offer them to students, whatever.
great,
So that'll be a whole new experience for everybody on campus.
yeah, that's excellent,
Okay, I thought you'd like that.
yeah, I love that.
One of our resident parents.
Yes, that's
Well,
great.
And also I worked with Norma Jean a little bit, I've done some judging of the cooking contest and I've been in the space and I always thought, why is it not closer to the cafeteria, and I have a teenager in the high school who's complaining about the food and how it's inedible.
Okay, yes. So the other thing that gets added is a new science wing with the new science labs. It'll be 3 stories tall. It's to be adjacent to the gym. So part of the problem with the present campus is that the locker rooms and shower rooms are in the basement of the gym. Not a regular basement like you have in your house today, but it's actually 2 levels down,
A sub-basement.
a sub-basement. So it is inaccessible to anyone with, other than in great shape. So if you have a sprained ankle, you can't go down. If you have other physical disabilities, you can't get there. So the biggest thing is we have to get those locker rooms out of the basement. So that's part of the additional space we're adding as well.
Are there going to be elevators or escalators or any kind of motorized?
There will be elevators.
access?
There'll be elevators. Escalators are really not geared for high schools or
Sure.
schools in general. I did raise the issue with the architects way back when, but.
Well, I know right now, I go there, sometimes you have stairs.
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
So there will be elevators relocated, the proper size elevators for folks to get access to the whole property. There's also a new administration area, which is as small as possible, but it actually creates a space where, if you're familiar with the campus, you can't figure out where the front door is. And that's been the trouble since day one. Originally, the front door was actually in the library building, and you had to go down the campus and hang a left to get into the front door. When we did the project back in the late 90s, the front door was supposed to be actually at the bus loop, but the engineers for the septic system said you can't put the building there, it's on top of the septic system, so you had to turn the building 90 degrees. So the front door then just became another different place. So,
So, I'm sorry, in the interest of time, we
I'm sorry.
we tend to hard stop around 9 around here.
Okay, I can move along.
No, just getting to like the actual costs and,
Okay.
and particularly costs associated with Wellfleet.
So the actual cost, the original budget for the project was $140 million. And the school building committee, along with the staff, did what's called a schematic design, which is that you refine the project. You refine the spaces, you refine the budget. So the school staff went through every space that they originally looked at, and we took out 2,500 square feet at $448 a square foot, so we reduced the budget there. We reduced the amount of money we needed for asbestos abatement from $2.5 million to $1.1 million. So that number came down. We then reduced the number of classrooms from 35 to 33. That saved another $800,000. We reduced the allowance for a maintenance building from $1 million to $250,000 because there are maintenance areas that are built into the project as we go along. Rather than have a standalone 4,500 square foot maintenance facility, there's the one that's there now is going to stay. There's going to be additions to the back of the gym in that new wing. And so at the end of the project, whatever we need for maintenance spaces, we will be added at the very end.
So you basically reduced the project budget by $10 million.
We reduced the project by $9 million. So we went from 220,000 square feet to 214,000 square feet. And we reduced the project from 140 million to 131, 825, 665. That's the cap of the budget today. So to fund this, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, tomorrow after 10 o'clock, I'll be in Boston, will officially grant the Nassau Regional School District a facilities grant of $36,661,305. That is the maximum grant that they're going to allow for this project. So the balance to the towns is $95,164,360 today. And I say that because the really hard number for us at this end, the 95 million, isn't not going to be set until we go out to bid and the bids are opened and we actually have hard numbers for the construction. So that is the maximum it's going to be. The budget can't go above 131,825, and the state isn't going to give us more than 36,661. So we are in this realm. This is where we are. So we are asking the towns for funding because we feel that this is the best solution for Nassau Regional High School to partner with the state, get $36.6 million, and renovate the space for the next century. Make sure that the systems are proper. We were asked at a lot of the forums to include certain things, and lo and behold, as you all know, that folks really wanted the swimming pool, which we're not doing because it's not allowed. But we were really asked a lot of times to do air conditioning. So the buildings will be air conditioned. There won't be one large air conditioning system. We pieced it out so that the buildings are sized for the equipment, so we're not wasting energy. It's the same thing with the heating system.
What kind of heating are we gonna have there?
Well, the heating fuel is gas, but there are 3 different heating systems based on the space. So, for instance, the auditorium and the gymnasium will have a heating system large enough to fill those spaces. The other buildings, because they're classrooms, they're smaller spaces, so it'll be some kind of forced hot water, forced hot air, depending on what the system is and where they are. And the same thing with the air
I
conditioning.
think that makes a lot of sense, because it's hard enough balancing a single building, let alone all these multiple.
And because the buildings will be insulated, they'll be much easier to control. And quite frankly, the heating system is original to the property. The boilers are 1960s vintage. They used to burn number 4 oil, and now they burn gas. They haven't been changed, and there's no insulation on the boilers either, by the way. If you want to stay nice and warm in the wintertime, go to the Nassau Regional High School boiler room, because it's about 90 degrees in there, no matter what's happening outside. That's just the nature of the beast.
So 2 questions,
Yep.
Greg. Wellfleet's contribution to the 95,164,000 is proportionally the same as in the operations budget,
Yes.
based on
Based
student
on-
population
Based on
and
your
so on?
student population, so this year, it's 17%, I'm sorry,
You can ask me.
I know, I'm sorry.
So the FY20 assessment is 13.37, fiscal '21, we're looking at 13.0108%.
But quite frankly, the numbers
But
really,
who's counting?
Right,
Well-
but it's gonna fluctuate.
it's gonna fluctuate, because what happens is that you don't really get assessed a bill until the project is done, which is 2025 FY. So all the numbers in between are kind of moot.
We can probably anticipate between 13 and 15% of whatever the final cost is. That's probably.
In that realm,
Yeah.
okay?
A question actually for both of you that I was thinking of before. While the building is being torn down and reconstructed, how's that going to affect operations in the existing school, for better or for worse from a financial perspective?
So what happens, first of all, is that I give you another sheet that says ineligible cost,
Oh, good.
okay? You have one?
I have a fact sheet.
Yes, fact sheet.
Okay.
Okay, so let me run down that real quick. MSBA pays for certain things, but they don't pay for a lot of things.
This answers the question I was gonna ask.
Okay.
so.
So they don't pay for legal fees. OPM is the owner project manager services. So what happens with MSBA is that if they're not gonna pay for a space, and I'm gonna use the part of the gymnasium that's too large for their taste. So because they're not paying for 1/3 of the gymnasium, they don't pay for the services from the architect and project manager to oversee the construction of those spaces.
Of those spaces in their entirety?
No, just the
Just
section,
the third.
just the third that they're not paying for, they prorate the fees. And if you sit in MSBA seat, they're trying to squeeze every dime they can out of these projects, so if they're not gonna pay for the square footage, they're not gonna pay for the architect and the project manager services. So the other thing that they do not pay for, we took umbrage at, and we explained it to them, they don't pay for the septic system. And we took umbrage because if you're in a urban area and there's sewers running
You pay
by,
for sewer tie-in.
they pay for the sewer tie-up. They won't pay for septic system in the country, and we made the case 3 times, and they said, smiled and said no, but we tried. So those costs are not reimbursed as well. So
So and the modulars, I assume, are the temporary.
cost for
Classrooms
modules,
to
they don't pay
answer
for anything
Fred's
for that.
question.
And we
That's
so
where you put your students.
on the property, we're going to be getting modular classrooms from the town of Lincoln, who are in the process of doing their project now. By the time they're done in 2 years, we will need the modulars. We get to pay them a whole $1 for their used modulars. We truck them down here and set them up, and that's the cost to set them up and do the tie-ups. But the MSP pays $0 for that.
But we're getting a good deal.
Yes, we are.
Was that because you guys coordinated that? Or is that a standard building of a high school?
No, actually, the original proposal from the architect and the project manager was that they didn't include modulars. And they kept talking about how expensive it was gonna be to do a building, move the kids out. And we looked around the table and said, we had portable classrooms 25 years ago.
Yeah. right.
Why aren't you including them? And they looked at us and said, really? You don't mind? We said, no, it's actually the better way of doing it. So the students are out of harm's way. You have access to as many buildings as you want, 3, 2, whatever it takes to do it. So the project actually gets done a little bit faster. So it's a coordination issue, safety issue, but then, it's a nice, safe environment for the students to keep learning. It's not the same environment as a finished school, but it's at least better than being intense. Or like the last project where they're actually in the buildings when they're doing jackhammering. So you can see the biggest number here is that 33,390,511. MSBA pays for $333 a square foot for construction costs. This project right now is costed out at $448 a square foot. It wasn't 500, we're down to 448. We're gaining. And as I said before, when the construction bids are open, whatever cost per square foot reduces that number and reduces the cost to the district towns. I will share with you that some projects on the other side of the bridge are going for $650 and $700 a square foot in today's market, but we think we'll be just fine, 448 and less. So these are all moving parts to the project, but these are the costs that you'll see in the big budget of $43,297,111 are ineligible costs, plus the parentheses around the septic system. We have asked our civil engineer to approach DEP about having a very strong conversation about why they feel we may need to do the septic system over again. So we're doing a body count, so basically how many people are on the campus on a given day for whatever purposes. That generates so much flow of effluent per person, and whatever that number is, the DEP doubles, and that's what they say your effluent that you have to treat. I will share with you that many years ago we did the same thing to NASA. We went to Lakeville and made the case that because we changed all the fixtures, NASA was not using 17,000 gallons per day. It was more in the realm of 3,000 gallons a day, and that was with 1,000 plus students on the property. So they reduced the requirement back then and gave us basically an enhanced residential system and a certificate to do that. So there's a lot of moving parts, as you can tell. But where we are today is that this is our budget set by MSBA. Like I said, I'll be in Boston tomorrow to accept the grant officially. And we'll let you know that the 36,661,305 has not changed.
So we'll hold our breath while we wait for the final numbers.
But the good thing is that tomorrow, see, the state treasurer is part of the MSBA board.
Okay.
So when the board votes tomorrow, they actually create an account with Nauset's name on it and put the 3661 in the account, ready for us. And tomorrow, the 13th of February, starts the clock running on this project. And that clock is that the 4 towns have 120 days to vote the project positively or negatively.
Unfortunately, all of the town meetings fall within that.
What is the target student population size for the school?
This was done for a design room of 905 students. There are 925, give or take, a body today. And by the time the school is open and occupied 5 years out, the state, in their infinite wisdom and demographic study, said Nauset could do a project for 905, and that's what they're funding. It's based on that issue. So in the case of things that they pay and don't pay for, you'll see, if you walk through the paperwork, that they pay 8 cents on the dollar for moving dirt. They don't want to pay for moving dirt. The science labs, on the other hand, they pay like 100% of it, because that is one of their
Top priorities.
top priorities. We've been to 6 other schools, Mr. Easley and I. have been
Never
to-
mind that you can't have the science laboratories without moving dirt.
True, but we're not moving that much dirt because we're staying within the footprint we have today. So that's good. The other thing they don't pay for is anything for the administration area. So the first thing they get reduced, they don't pay for offices.
Right.
So the first thing that the staff did was they said, they took every office on campus and said, okay, everybody, this is gonna be, I'm gonna use the word communistic in the wrong sense, but everybody gets the same size office. You're the principal, department head, whatever. So you get a 10 by 12 room, period, that's it. There's no office larger than that.
Alright.
So that saved some square footage.
So one last question before we move on to the library. It looks like our chunk of this is about 12,300,000, if I've done the math right.
Mhm.
Do we have, is that about right?
Yeah, I came up with 12,397,000 and change.
You've got a more precise starting number than I did. I was rounding a little bit. Do we have any idea what that represents to Wellfleet on a year-to-year basis, give or take?
I don't know.
I'm gonna let,
Well, I guess obviously there are a couple of assumptions. One of them is you don't know exactly what the bids are gonna come in at. For example, Cape Tech came in at $12 million below our estimate, and we did that. Second thing is, Wellfleet share is dependent on its percentage of enrollment. I use
Sure.
13%, which happens to be, I pulled that. If we had an envelope at 5 o'clock, it would have been real back of the envelope. calculation.
I'm willing to live with current numbers for the time, and current
I
estimates
use
for the time
13%,
being.
which is off by, 100 to 1%.
But are we looking at a 20-year bond, 30-year bond?
So I assumed a 20-year bond
Okay.
at 4%. Typically, the longer you spread out the bond, the lower the principal payments are. And I think typically 4% is a conservative high number for interest rate.
These days,
If
yeah.
you do 20 years, then you've got to retire and level principal payments, which is the way most bonds are. You've got to retire in principal basically $620,000 a year for each of the 20 years. That gets you the $12 million. Plus interest at 4%. So if you take interest at 4% on the $12,400,000 in the first year, that's another $496,000. So first year payment works out to be about
1.1 million.
1.115 million. And last year, the payment is about 60% of that. So I looked at Wellfleet's total equalized valuation, I took that out of last year's annual town report. And so I said, what does it cost on the tax rate to retire 1.115 million with an equalized valuation of $2,393,000,000? And that worked out to 46.62 cents on the tax rate. So on a $532,000 house, which I understand to be the median value, that's $248 in year one and about $140 in year 20.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was really helpful. Thank you.
Good envelope.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You guys were very thorough, as always, and
And don't hesitate to ask questions. If you have questions about the paper, let us know. We'll go
I
from
may
there.
have questions when we get to more solid
What's the,
information.
What's the projected date for start of construction and end of construction?
So the timeline is the following, that by May 19th of this year, all four towns will have voted. If the project is supported, then we move forward with the project so that from June of this year, we do a bond anticipation note to pay the architect and the project manager to design the plans and specifications through March of 2021. In March of 2021, we go out to bid. We open the bids in May, and we start construction in June of 21. And construction goes for roughly 30 months or less. So in August of 24, the project will be done. By December of 24, the project will be closed out with MSBA auditing, because they used to wait till the end of the project, now they do it monthly, so we're not behind in the paperwork. So by January 1st, 2025, the project will be done, and you'd see the first budget impact when NASA presents their budget for FY26. You'd see a line item in there for debt, because they're the awarding authority for the debt for the project. So that's roughly the timeline.
Yeah.
Another very quick comment. Cost estimators take into account the start date of the project. So the cost estimate is not based on breaking ground today. It's breaking
Yeah.
ground in accordance with that schedule.
In so much as they can anticipate
they-
things.
Yeah, I mean, for
Yeah.
example, with the high school, we ran into changes in the steel tariffs.
Yes.
Not to go
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah, there's some things that can't be anticipated.
Can I, one more?
yes, of course.
Only because it came up earlier.
Yes.
The roofs and windows that were done. So because we were tearing down 2.5 buildings, the roofs have so many years and months left on, so the value of those things were amortized by MSBA, their share of it. So we owe them $403,000 in money back. So that's what's called the recovery clause. You see,
Just taking them the old roof?
I tried a couple of things, honestly, but to keep the roof. But anyway, so we owe that money. Actually, it was worse than that when we figured out. But again, that is
Okay.
when we tear the buildings down.
Wrap this up.
Okay.
I can see the newspaper headline now. Hopefully gets a bad case of the shingles.
There you go.
Outstanding.
Thank you very, very much.
Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you all of you. I'd like to welcome Jennifer Workin.
we've all been last at one time or another.
The first shall be last.
We anticipate that you will not be making us dizzy with numbers.
No. No.
Jennifer, I assume everyone knows, is the director of the library.
And Retha Ciotti is my board chair.
Hello. And the library budget is under culture and recreation.
It's budget number 610, if anybody's looking for it.
You actually have salaries.
What?
Good evening. I've never been in front of the finance committee before.
Is that true? This is the friendliest group in
Yeah.
town. We have cookies,
And that's what we
including
were told.
gluten-free
We were told. We were told it was friendly. But thank you for having me. I am here to ask for an increase in our materials budget. And that's pretty much all I'm asking for. Our salaries will increase along with our union contract in the way that they will. But what I'm really here to ask for is that you increase our materials budget, which are books, our ebooks, our DVDs, our CDs, and all of our circulating materials, by about $17,000. And this would put us in compliance with Massachusetts general law that has 19.5% of the library's operating budget go towards funding materials, and we are now not at that rate. So it would take approximately that much money to bump us up. And I have given you some justifications in this budget statement. I can outline some of them for you. The types of materials that we circulate now include books, which are our least expensive resource, but now where a regular book might cost, with our discount, $12 to $14, an ebook or an e-audio can cost about $95. And our circulation of ebooks and e-audios has gone up in the past few years from, I think when I'm being on looking at this, from just over 600 to over 12,000 over a 5-year period. So that's how quickly people are taking on this new format, and that is circulation just as much as any other kind of circulation. We also, so we're seeing a big need in that area. We're seeing a big need in our reference materials. I'm about to have my 5-year anniversary, and I have not.
Have a cookie.
And I've not replaced a gluten-free cookie. I have not replaced a lot of pretty much any reference materials yet, and they are really costly, and I'm going to need to do that. One of the things I want to do is look into circulating wireless hotspots, which is something that many libraries do, and I think that would be really great for our patrons who
So people who don't have access to wire to cable or Verizon internet.
So is that something where it goes home with them?
It's a little Bluetooth device, and it goes home with them, and
Cool. And it,
You can check out a Bluetooth device.
yeah, it's
That's
a
pretty
thing.
cool.
It's a really cool thing, and I would love to be able to offer that to our patrons who come to the library for many hours to use our public computers. It's another option for them. That
Are the
would
ones
be-
who sit outside on your porch when the library's
Well,
closed.
right, and I do have statistics of our usages, which are up 15%. Our Wi-Fi usage is up 15% this year, just at the library itself, and that has increased even since I wrote this budget, because I get monthly statistics about our Wi-Fi
Who
usage.
provides Wi-Fi for the library?
Comcast.
And you
Well-
get gigabit service from them, or have you not had that upgrade, or, do you know?
We use Comcast Business.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what they do.
They
They offered us a new modem last year, and we went from, they said 250 meg of throughput to a gig, and
I think business is a different model.
probably,
This
yeah,
is
a
it.
better one, probably.
Yeah, and we have several routers around
Okay.
the library, and so we have Wi-Fi and public computing.
Mostly I was wondering if you see a degrading of service as more people get on, or you're not like exceeding your bandwidth
Well,
in any way, I guess.
Yes, I'd like to improve it, and I would love to be able to use OpenCape, and that has been a problem because some of the wiring issues in our building. But I want to be able to explore that, and I would like to be able to add a couple of more modems even for the Verizon that we have now, because yes, it could be spotty, and particularly like in our meeting room, if we're trying to stream, we can't stream films for the public or anything.
Yeah, for example.
We can't do that.
Okay.
Is Open Cape serving some of the local libraries?
Yes, and in fact, the CLAMS network is on OpenCape, and so our staff computers are on OpenCape, because we have our proprietary software that we use through CLAMS, which is loaded onto our staff computers. That is all on OpenCape, and so they service those servers and everything.
So the issue is in the local wiring.
Yeah, the way that the wiring goes in through the basement of the building is very, very far away from where our computer sort of control room is. And I have to sort of think about that. I would love that.
Would there
Much
be
better
revenue,
service.
I don't know how that works in terms of what you're allowed to do, but, you know, the Cape Cinema has the Royal Theatre, you know, the Royal Shakespeare, they do, you know, streaming of theater, and as what does, they also do the opera and whatnot, and that's an obviously for-profit opportunity. I don't know if the library would be allowed to, if you were able to have streaming services, or if you could do those sorts of things, would you be allowed to charge admission as you do for other things potentially?
Part of our mission to not charge,
Right?
so allowed is one thing, and having a model where everything is free to the public is another thing. So
I think Pres Hall is be more applicable for what
Right.
you're talking about.
Yeah, and more appropriate.
Questions? Anyone?
No, I know that the library in the relatively near future will be looking to add personnel, possibly a construction project, some other things, so
well, we're not going to add personnel. Somebody's leaving, and we're hiring.
not this year. I mean, like, going forward.
Right. Okay.
So I'm responsible for you being here tonight because I wanted you to come into the process in a year where things were relatively normal, so that you would know what it was like to be in front of the finance committee when you do have to come to us looking for big number things. Because I know it's
No, you just have to make sure the selectmen agree with your budget.
Yeah. Well, you're a year or two behind on the question of having to put in a sprinkler system, for example.
Well,
So
we
I know
don't-
you're in the early stages of looking at larger renovations on the library that might include that instead of having it be an exclusive expense, as it's likely to be at the elementary school.
Right.
So,
We wouldn't do it without doing something else.
of course. So that's the sort of thing that 3 years out, 2 years out, we might be
Right.
talking about.
So we're going to do a feasibility study at some point in the near future, just to see what the guts of our building are like. You know, our electricity, our septic. We don't
Hasn't been
know.
done in a long time.
We don't know what's going on there, and so we're going to do that. We're going to see what's up. We have long known that the public wants more space. We're well aware of that. we've been reorganizing our space inside now. We did a major weeding project this past year, and we removed some stacks in order to have a
Quiet reading.
space available for a large table and chairs and sort of a quiet space away from the larger, louder part of the library. And so we have that going for it. People want more seating, and again, to go with Wi-Fi and workstations. And,
It's really a working space.
right. So.
And you should all go in and see this gorgeous table in there.
And as we continue to look at what the public wants, we know they want to be open more hours, and that's something I'm definitely looking at as well. And looking at our staffing structure to see how I can make that happen, so that I have enough people in the building at all times when we're open. We are halfway into our current five-year plan, which
Well,
is
2 years. 2 years.
2 years into our current five-year plan,
Right.
which is on our website under About Us, if you want to take a look at that. But
And it looks to me, just looking at your budget, that the lion's share of, it looks like it's a 5.8% increase, but that's almost all in books and materials, and I understood that some of that is mandated, because
It
you have
is.
to have a percentage
it is.
based on your budget,
It is.
and you're catching up to what the
We are.
mandate is that correct?
We are. It used to be, 100%, and then it could be 90 or 80. And the 80 just went away because that was something that they had put in place during the financial crisis in 2007, 2008. And now it's only 90, which is really where we are now. And so we really have to stay. And so this one-time big jump up to the 17,000 or so that I'm asking for, it's kind of just this year, because then I will only need to add,
Yeah.
I'm just catching up at this point.
That was
with
my
it.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and when you say that people are looking for extra hours, what sort of increase are you thinking is reasonable? Even a range, just, I mean, an idea of, are they looking for 10 extra hours a week, 50 extra hours a week? Like, what do you think might actually happen?
I'm gonna start by opening one more morning a week.
All right.
That's where I'm gonna start.
So it's like 4 hours.
That's where I'm gonna start.
All right.
That's where I'm gonna start. No, yeah, and but even that it's a busy
Yeah.
organization, and
So what is the Friends contribution?
how much you mean?
Yeah, your total department is 507.
Uh-huh.
So what is the Friends on an average year contribute?
Add to that.
They contribute about, I want to say 20,000,
That's all, 20,000?
24,000.
Okay.
And they provide all of our children's programming.
Out of that
and-
20,000?
Hmm?
Out of that 20,000?
Out of that amount of money. So they do children's programming, they do, and some adult programming. They provide us with some special services, all of our museum passes, things that aren't in our standard.
They're not part of the operation costs.
Yeah, so.
And what other kinds of contributions do you get, if any?
We get gifts that are given to the to the trustees.
To the Friends?
No,
No.
to the
Trustees
board of
and
The
trustees.
trustees receive funds, donations and gifts. And
And
The
how
friend,
do
the
those-
Friends fundraise for the money that they bring
Yeah,
in.
So the
the
Friends
Friends-
give you 20,000, what do the trustees give you?
Well, they fund special projects. you know, the trust funds would be used more for something like what we're doing with this back area to create the space and furniture and to fund our feasibility study.
Right. Major
Um,
projects.
we
for-
would
Defined
Right.
Big
projects.
projects.
Yeah, we wouldn't use a gift that someone gave us after they died for operating costs.
Okay, so the Friends, that's a public, I mean, not the Friends, I got them mixed up, I'm sorry. The Trustees is a public budget with a public, with,
It's private money.
it's private.
It's
Yes.
trust fund.
It's all
Okay,
private
so
money.
it's all private money.
There are
And just-
donations
yeah.
from,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
some
Okay.
legacies and things like that. It's
Mhm.
not public.
Okay, so your budget is private budget,
Yes.
okay,
And we work very carefully with that
okay.
because there is going to come a time when there will be a big need for a big, use of it.
Yeah,
And we'll be asking, the
We'll be
trustees
asking-
will be asking the town for money as well as
As
putting
using-
a big
Right.
portion of that
As well as
into.
fundraising, as well as all of that. But the Friends money is more fungible, you know, they raise it at the book sales and at
Yeah.
the distinguished speaker, and then they funnel it right back into,
So the
Do-
507 is the town bill. We pay the 507, 500.
Correct, this budget is
This is
does
the-
not
And then
accrue
the
to
trustees,
include those
what-
things.
And when you say legacy, is it like we're the interest off some amount of money that's been,
It's usually money that's been gifted in wills.
Yes.
and then do you guys invest it or you just use it? So do you have, is it, so it just comes to you, it comes from a trust fund and you just get your portion of it?
It's-
every
yeah.
year, and
No.
then
Who,
the
well,
trust
who controls
funds
the
invest it?
distribution of it, I guess is part of the question.
The
Who actually-
trustees.
The
Trustees,
trustees do.
so there is a designated,
They have a whole bunch.
So I see they get
Yeah.
the money from all
Some
these
people
different
leave money and
people.
say it can only be used for
Right.
this.
We have-
Some people say,
yes.
here, you can do whatever you want.
Right.
Most of it, and we're now expecting people not to restrict it because
Yeah.
we want to be able to use it for things that go along with our long-range plan. That's really part of it. When I first became a trustee, for example, the Wellfleet Library Fund, which we use a great deal for various kinds of things, was about $15,000 to $20,000. It is today $86,000, and it receives a lot of the donations that people give. Somebody dies, and a lot of people give money to the library to honor them.
So instead of going into a specific fund with that person's name on it, it goes now into.
unless they,
Right, unless,
depending
yes,
on how they designate.
right,
Right,
Sure.
we do have some named funds, but there has to be a
Still
certain
have
amount of
them.
money
right.
in order to
It
achieve
certainly would be a
that.
lot more convenient if people
Right.
would just let you put it in the one.
well,
It's,
in-
it's money that's used very, very carefully, very thoughtfully. That's part of what the trustees do. That's our job, is not to, waste that
So
money.
there's the Friends, which is one organization, and the trustees are another.
So the
There are
Friends
two
are
entities.
the Friends are a 501c3 total separate organization that, their main mission is to raise money to support the library,
Right.
and they do a
They're
fantastic
wonderful.
job. They're amazing,
Yeah.
and they raise about $25,000 a year, and the trustees are the trustees of the funds that people when they leave money to the actual library,
And that money is held by the town,
the town.
and it gets a very, very small amount of interest, as all
It's basically the savings
funds are right now,
accounts.
but
So
Should have
at
invested in
trustees,
Tesla.
at trustees meetings, much
Yes.
of what you do is talk about how much money you have, where it can potentially go, et cetera. I mean, that's a lot of what you do, is you administer your
there are
your
times
funds.
when we do that. Most of the time, it has more to do with policy. It has to do with issues that the
I need
library
to-
director brings up.
They almost
Yeah.
act as like a board of directors.
And our main job is hiring
The director.
Uh-huh.
the director. And
So, in the interest of being respectful of everybody's time, we're coming up on 9 o'clock, and if nobody has any other major questions, I would thank you for your time and presentation.
just let me add, this library, once again, is a 5-star library,
It's a bargain.
12 years.
And a well-loved institution.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
And the
very
TA,
much.
the TA seems to
That
be,
designation is amazing.
the TA seems to be in support of
Yeah.
the increase in funds and has included it in this budget, which tells me there's no problem with it
Mhm.
coming in, so that's
And
really
I
good
think
information.
The town will be proud of funding the
Yeah.
library 100%.
Oh, really?
I would hope.
Sit down with you.
I really
You
feel
don't
that.
have to worry about this. I'll pass that
Oh,
around.
yeah.
I
So,
feel like Bill Murray in Ghostbusters to Egon, you've earned your cookie. Go ahead, take it.
sorry we
You've earned
kept
it.
you here so long.
Now, feel free, please. There's gluten-free cookies there, and there's Oreos, and if you're hungry, grab one.
Thank you, Jan.
I'm gonna say before I do the correspondence, can we
Thank
just,
you.
has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes
No.
that Rebecca left?
But what Janet said is absolutely true. They're very wonderful people.
Hey. Thank you.
You just misunderstood.
So Rebecca's working through the minutes of the last couple of meetings, she sent one. She is gradually,
Catching up.
time averaging herself back into civilization, and she had another board meeting she had to do tonight, so she is catching up, but this is from 2 weeks ago, I believe. And,
From January 22nd.
right, and
So I'll move the minutes. I move that we accept the minutes, January 22nd.
all those in favor?
Mm,
Okay, so we got a 5-0 on that. And we did get some correspondence, which I just handed out.
right.
It's from Bill Dugan, I guess.
Go again.
Dugan, thank you.
Is that a letter to the editor?
It's a letter to us.
Can I take
Was
a
it-
peek at that? Is it public information? Thanks.
He
He was the treasurer for the.
He was the
Lawsuit.
person also at regional too, but he was also the town administrator.
Yeah,
Well,
welcome.
in Milford for a bit.
When?
Yeah.
Oh, well, see,
I mean,
you learn something new.
I've been in
every
this
day.
town 20 years and I've never heard of the guy.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
no, yeah, he was.
Well,
town administrator.
Thank you, Bill, for the letter. I'm not going to read everything into it because,
It'll be it'll be.
because
in
the
our
request was
documents.
actually that it just be distributed to the members of the FinCom as an
So
FYI.
done.
But I will speak just very briefly to, it's a 3-page document rated the Nauset Inter-District School Choice Program. Bill said he'd be appreciative if we'd send a copy to each member of your finance committee. So done, and for those who aren't here tonight, I will make sure that they have
It's
the
been emailed
copy.
to us
Right.
as well.
So, without getting into gory detail, there has been some expression of interest in eliminating the school choice program by people. You probably saw the article, the Brewster Finance Committee was approached last week, I think. I don't know if Bill is related to that group at all, so I'm not going to speak to that.
No, we would have no influence over this.
No, I think the way it affects us one way or the other is, at some point, we're going to weigh in on the presentation we got tonight, not only the budget, but the proposed capital improvement project. They are all, as I understand it, I spent a long time talking to Tom Conrad's administrative person today, because he's in California, but there is a link, and I invite you to explore it, between
Everybody?
the school choice program and monies that might be saved by not having school choice kids in the school, of whom there are about 300.
Right, but the finance committee doesn't vote on that. Who
No.
decides that?
No,
That's decided by the,
correct, and when the
So
town, well, this is, I think, an issue that's going to come up at town meeting.
I think that he's
And,
looking to see if
and the point I'm
finance
trying to
committees
make
will
here
support
is
him.
that,
Sounds like a great radio show. What did
A
you,
limit-
what did you said there's a website that has more on school?
no, I
choice?
spoke to the school, the Nauset Regional High School admin, who is
Yeah.
not the official person, I think Tom Conrad would be.
Yeah,
But there is a link between school choice disappearing from the high school and obviously the total population of the high school, which would decrease by a third, which could then impact the construction. And there may be a misconception on the part of people who are pressing for this that we could just go back in and say, well, we're going to do a smaller high school, because I've heard that sort of thing. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
The state has, you've heard in gory detail, it's a multi-year
Yeah, like I
project.
said, as a finance committee, we would even be getting involved in, I mean.
I assume that he's looking to see if the finance committee will support his position.
Well, the issue is if we end up with a
Support whose
school that's gonna
position?
be built for 905, and if we're only gonna have 700 students, I mean, that's an issue right there.
Yes.
If the
Yeah,
finance
but do you
committee,
build a big school
if the
and
finance
if
committee
you
is
reduce
asked
the size,
either
why
to
would
take
you
a
do it?
position on the
Just
capital
because the state's
improvement
making
project,
money.
Right?
It's
which
a
we
little
are likely
bit
to
that
be,
So
we
it's a
should be-
financial nature. Yeah,
we-
we can vote on that.
correct, we should be aware that there is a
Whether we
link
should
between
cancel school
eliminating
choice
this
or not.
program
Right.
and its effect on that program.
Yeah.
That program, at least as it was explained to me, may just go away if you cancel school choice, and that would be worth looking deeper into. But
And you got the other issue that what this is really addressing, it was almost like going back to the whole discussion on shellfishing industry. And it's like, what percentage of the town is actually engaged in industry, which are the people that are sending people to the schools?
Well,
so I don't want to
So-
pretend to be the expert here
What do you
on,
think?
But
What do you think?
The town, I don't know how it will go, but I mean, the town has had a commitment to try
It's
to at least
after
keep on.
9.
we're going, trust me. The only other thing I have, before you lurch out of here, the only other thing I
We're not
have
lurching, we're
is
running.
that in other business, I believe Jim Hood's gonna come to next week's meeting. His budget will be cooked by then, I've been told by him.
I'm not gonna be here next week, just want you to know.
Okay,
I got one quick liaison thing.
make it quick, please.
Energy Committee is just, Energy and Environmental, they're applying for some loan, for some grants, but the grants are based on a dollar matching. I know they delivered it to Dan in the vicinity of 50,000, I think, so I'm not sure where that would come from, but
So
Okay,
it's gonna be an article.
yeah.
They're gonna ask for $50,000.
it depends on,
And
we don't know what they're
Thank
asking
you,
for.
thank you all for your patience. It's-
Can I just offer my,
climate.
not any points, but if in the future you'd like to discuss school choice, I am Wellfleet's representative on the school committee. I'm pretty well versed in it. Some of the information you just discussed really doesn't quite hit what the issue really is. So if you'd like to have a longer discussion on it, or a more involved discussion,
What's your
far as-
email address?
can it just,
easily see at nausetschools.org.
Easley, E-A-S.
SLEYC at Nauset Schools.
If it comes down to where people want to have a longer conversation, we'll put it on an agenda for a meeting and then,
The concern is
I just
there's
wanna
a
know
lot
one
of
thing.
misinformation going around.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, pardon me, I think people are really attempting to provide information, but they don't understand it and therefore are.
and I would be one of those people. I'm giving you secondhand information. I just think it's a more complicated issue and we should look into it to the degree that it affects our financial issues, if it does.
Can I-
My
can I
question would be,
speak for
can
just
you,
one
can you
second
withdraw
here?
from school choice? Can a district say, I don't want to participate?
I mean, there would be a process to getting out of it,
Yeah.
but I mean, you can't just,
Exactly.
we have students that
Right.
come each year that.
I
Well,
just want to ask one simple question. The way I read
Years
this
to
thing,
figure it out.
the way I read this thing is that what this guy is saying is if we cancel school choice, we could save $15,000 per however many students we are accepting in school choice. Is that what he's saying?
And that may be what he's saying, but that is not.
All right,
That-
so
and
this
that's
is so
my
off,
understanding,
this is so off our
that-
mission at the moment.
that's
It's not on the
all-
agenda.
I just wanted
I'm
that
happy to consider
clarification.
putting it on in the future.
I just
But right now, I would
wanted
like to
that
entertain
So
a
moved.
motion to
Right.
adjourn.
So moved.
Get a clarification on it, though, I'm sorry.
On what?
All those who
Is
are in
good or
favor
bad?
of adjourning, okay.
I don't know